Preparing pastry from scratch can be time consuming. That's why I love to use Fillo pastry, because it's great to have in your fridge when you want to make a really quick savoury tart. Now I'm going to make a gorgeous mixed mushroom and goat's cheese tart. This is divine. Now for the mushrooms, use a mixture. So I have a variety of good old classic button mushrooms, some Swiss brown mushrooms, and these beautiful big field mushrooms. There's so much flavour in these field mushrooms. I'm going to take the stalk away because it's slightly woody, and I'll leave the skin on, but I've given them a bit of a brush. If there's some dirt, just remove that. So we'll just cut these meaty style mushrooms into strips, and then we'll dice it. Now I've been preheating my pan. We want it to be nice and hot before we add the mushrooms. So a large pan, just like this one, a good glug of extra virgin olive oil, let's just say 2 to 3 tablespoons, and then we'll start frying them. Okay, give them a toss in the oil. Now I'll prepare 1 onion that I'll finely chop. We want to sweat this off with the mushrooms, but I don't want to add it before the mushrooms. If I add the garlic and the onion now, what will happen is it'll burn, giving us a bitter flavour. We want these onions just to soften, so this is the second stage of cooking. And then 2 cloves of garlic that I'll just bruise and then finely chop. Now for the base of this tart, ricotta is going to give it a beautiful, moist, fluffy texture. So 3/4 cup of ricotta, along with some soft, mild goat's cheese. Crumble it in your fingers, and I'll add a good handful of parmesan that I've just flaked with a peeler, and then some lemon thyme. Beautiful flavours with the goat's cheese. And we'll just pick off all those little leaves. And then some nutmeg and cheese. They're friends too, so freshly grated nutmeg, just so we get a more of an intense flavour from that. And we only want about 1/4 teaspoon. Now with a fork, I'll just press everything together and combine it. All right, that is done. Let's go over to these mushrooms. You can see that they've cooked down significantly. They're golden in colour. Now I'll add the onion and the garlic. It smells so good. Now we'll just turn up the heat even higher and then start to sweat off this onion with our mushrooms. A good pinch of salt and some freshly cracked pepper. And I'll add a few more little leaves of that gorgeous lemon thyme. There's another mushroom that I want to add to this, and it's porcini mushrooms. Porcini mushrooms come dried, and I've rehydrated them in some warm water for about 10 minutes. You can see they soften and swell up, squeeze out the excess moisture. They have an intense mushroom flavour. This is something that I always have in my pantry because it almost imparts an extra savoury flavour. So a nice handful of them. This is roughly around 10 to 15 grams of dried mushrooms, and you can see how much you get after they've been rehydrated. So running the knife 3 or 4 times, that's plenty. And now we can add them to the rest of the mushrooms and onion. Right, I'm going to turn the heat down to a medium heat and then just allow all of these flavours to mingle and that onion to cook down. Now let's get on to the pastry. Fillo pastry, so easy to use. Bring it out of the fridge 1 to 2 hours before using it. The trick is to keep it moist as you work with it. So we'll just roll this beautiful soft pastry out, and then a damp tea towel on standby. First sheet down and then cover the rest with a tea towel. This will ensure it doesn't break up and it's really pliable. Then I'll brush this with some melted butter all over, leaving no spaces whatsoever. And then to ensure that this stays really crisp throughout the cooking process, I love the addition of some fresh breadcrumbs throughout each layer. So a small sprinkling of breadcrumbs. Now I'm just going to repeat the process. What I want is 6 layers. Now my mushrooms have cooled down and I have my 6 layers of Fillo pastry, and now we need to form a border for this. So it's as simple as rolling it just inwards so we create a gorgeous border. Now I'll do that around each side. Now I formed a border on the pastry, and now it's time to dress it with all of our ingredients. So our gorgeous ricotta and feta mixture, just scatter it around the base of the phyllo pastry. Now I'm just spreading this out evenly. If it's too thick, you can add a little milk or some cream, but not too much because we don't want the pastry to go soggy. Now once you've spread all of that cheese out quite evenly, we can add the mushrooms that have cooled down. These will just be scattered over the cheese, and then this goes into the oven, 180 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes, or until that pastry is super golden brown. Okay, this mushroom tart has come out of the oven. It looks fantastic. Crispy phyllo pastry. I've allowed it to cool for about 10 to 15 minutes, just cool enough so I can handle the tray. And now I'll carefully transfer it from the baking paper onto my presentation board, just underneath it, and then carefully take that off. Listen to how crunchy that is. It's flaking away. I'll just line that up so it's perfectly in the center. And then for a final garnish, some of that shaved parmesan just over the top, sprinkle it from a height. And then for a pop of color, look at this thyme. I know I've gone on about it a lot, but I love this lemon thyme, and it's just flowering. I think it's just a really nice touch for the end. So sprinkling that over the top. I also like to add a small crack of pepper, fresh pepper, before you take it to the table. I'll tell you what, your guests will be very impressed.